Hello everyone, you are welcome back to Edubbey Global Solution. Today we'll be discussing what is known as workers. Now, what are we learning under these workers? Let us move to our slide. Now, the first slide is telling us about the factors affecting individual choice of occupation. Of course, a worker is also an person involved in occupation. Now we have the factors that may influence a person's choice of job, which can be classified into wages factor and non-wage factor. Now our factor may also be referred to as the pay or salary. Now which the factors include wages itself, overtime pay, bonuses and commission. Now we also have non-wages factors, which also includes the job satisfaction, type of work, working conditions, and hours, and also job security, etc. Now let us move to the next slide. What is in there? We have the explanation of wage factor. Now you have to drag the word into the correct boxes as the explanation of the wage factor according to what we said earlier here. We have our wage factor to be wages itself, overtime pay, bonuses and commission. Now let us now drag it to the right space. The first statement, we have the higher the wage rate. Of course, this is straightforward here. This will now be what? Wage. It will be wage. Now we have there too, overtime pay may be paid to the worker. Of course, this one is also overtime. This one is straightforward to drag. Now we have here a bonus is an extra payment to workers that who produce above standard amount of finished projects ahead of time. This one is what? Bonus itself. It has already been named. Of course, it is bonus. It is named already. Now we have the last one to be commission. Of course, commission is paid on the proportion of the value of sales people make sometimes. Now let us look at the wages. We have the higher the wage rate on offer, the more a person wants to do a job. Of course, people work before because of the wages. Now we have overtime pay, which may be paid to the worker who work in excess of the standard working week. And we also have bonuses. Bonuses is an extra payment to workers that produce above standard amount or finished project ahead of time. Now we also have commission. Commission is paid on the proportion of the value of sales people make. Sometimes I said earlier. Now let us check. Of course, we got it right. Moving to the next slide, where we have non-wage factors also. Now, as we mentioned earlier, we are going to explain each of the non-wage factors here. We have the job satisfaction. The satisfaction of individual derived in a particular job can also lead to an increase in labor. Of course, if an individual derive a good satisfaction in a particular job, it will increase them to work. Now we have type of work. We have type of work. Type of work, people like to do job which enjoy a higher status and which most tend to be what? Most tend to be non-manual work, where the non-manual work tends to be physically less tiring job and generally offer more mental stimulation, which also tend to a better pay. Now we have working conditions and hours. People like to work in a pleasant surrounding with friendly colleagues, and occupation also varies in terms of hours expected from workers and the timing of those hours. We also have job security. Job security is also part of non-wage factors which are attracted by occupation, which offer a relative high degree of security. Now we also have holidays entitlement. Holiday entitlement is also part of non-wages factor that make individuals to choose a job. Moving to the next slide, we have past question here. What might prevent an individual choosing a particular occupation? According to our explanation now, what do you think might prevent an individual to choose a particular job? Now we have little opportunity for career progression, wage rate above national minimum wage, low cost of traveling to work, no risk to personal health. What do we know about national minimum wage? Of course, is the minimum rate of wages for an hour's work fixed by the government for the whole economy. Now, what is our answer here? What might, of course, it is if there is a little opportunity for career progression, it might prevent an individual in choosing a particular job. Moving to the next slide, we also have first question here. Carlos has been offered a new job with a large multinational company. He is undecided whether to accept the position. What is the non-factor he might consider? Now, this one is talking about the non-wage factor we have said earlier. Here we have overtime rate. Of course, overtime rate is a wage factor. Bonus payment is a wage factor. Holiday entitlement, of course, is a non-wages, and salary level is a wages factor. Here we have the holiday entitlement to be the non-wages factor. Moving to the next slide, where we have wage determination. How do we determine our wages and how wages is determined? The key factors that determine the amount of pay received by workers are the demand and supply of their labor. We already know what demand is, ability to buy, and the supply, ability to sell. Now, demand and supply. The higher the demand or the lower the supply of workers in occupation, the higher the pay is likely to be. Of course, that means the higher the demand, the higher the pay of the workers, and also at the same time, the lower the supply of workers, the higher the pay of workers. Now, other factors include relative bargaining power of employers and workers. Wages are likely to be higher in occupation, while workers have strong bargaining power relative to employer, whereas our bargaining power is when demanding higher wages under the threat of strike action. Of course, it can also determine our wage here. We have government policy also. The government clearly influences the wages of those workers from its employee in the public sector. Of course, wages can be determined by government policy. If there is the national minimum wage, that is the minimum wage of an hour work fixed by the government for the whole economy, as I said earlier. Now we move to the next slide, where we have activities also. What might cause a rise in wages? What do you think can cause an increase in wages? Now we have improved fringe benefits for workers. Is that so? The introduction of a new minimum wage, a more elastic supply of labor, an increase in the size of the labor force. What do you think can be the answer? Of course, the introduction of the national minimum wage, which is fixed by governments. Now, moving to the next past question here also. Wages for nurses decreases while working hours for pilots decrease. Assuming other factors do not change, what is the likely effect on the number of individuals choosing to become nurses or pilots? Now let us check things. Wages for nurses decrease. If there is a decrease in wages, of course, the workers may tend to quit the job. They will also decrease in number. Now, while working hours for pilot also decrease, of course, if that is the case, pilot will increase while nurses will decrease. Now let us check the option. We have nurses here, pilots here. We have increase, nurses cannot increase, nurse will decrease while pilots will increase. Let us check. Of course, that's right. Moving to the next slide here, we have the reasons for difference in earning. What do we know as earning? Earning is the total pay received by a workers, as simple as that. Now the main reason for a rise or less and fall in earning is a change in demand and or supply of labor. Now we have change in demand for labor. What do you mean by change in demand for labor? If demand for labor increase, earnings are also likely to rise. Of course, if the demand for labor increase, the total pay received by a worker will also increase. Now we have the effects of change in demand in the labor market. We have an increase in demand for products, a rise in labor productivity, and a rise in the price of capital. What does that mean? An increase in demand for a product will also lead to an increase in change in demand for labor, and also at the same time a rise in labor productivity will also lead to an increase in demand for labor, and at the same time a rise in the price of capital. Now we move to change in supply for labor. The change in supply for labor, a decrease in supply of labor will lead to an increase in the wage rate. Of course, it will lead to an increase in the wage rate, as it is explained earlier. Now we have the effect of decrease in supply in the labor market. What can be the effect of decrease in supply in the labor market? We have a fall in the labor force, a reduction in non-wage benefit of a job, a rise in the qualifications or length of training required to do the job. That is the effect of decrease in supply in the labor market. Moving to the next past question here. What will increase the demand for labor in an industry? Now, what do you think will cause an increase in the demand for labor in an industry according to the effect factor we just discussed now? An increase in the labor productivity in that industry, a decrease in the demand for goods made in the industry, a decrease in labor productivity in that industry, or an increase in wages in that industry. What do you think should be the answer? The answer should be the increase in the labor productivity in that country, because if there is an increase in labor productivities, there will be also increase in the demand for labor. That's correct. Moving to the next activities also here, we have to, what is likely to cause an immediate decrease in the size of the labor force? This is also talking about the change in supply for labor. Now, what do you think can cause an immediate decrease in the size of labor force? Now we have a fall in the birth rate, a reduction in the age of retirement, an increase in net immigration, a fall in the average size of family. What do you think can cause a decrease in the size of labor force? Of course, it is also a reduction in the age of retirement. Now we move to the next slide, where we have the other reasons for difference in earning, that is the difference in the total pay received by a worker. Now we have changes in bargaining power, that is demanding higher wages under threat of strike action, which can lead to an increase in earning. Now we have the change in government policy also, that is by raising the national minimum wages, which is fixed by the government, can also lead to a reason for difference in earning. Now we have changes in public opinion also, and at the same time we have the changes in the earnings of individual over times. NTC. Now we move to the next slide. We have the division of labor and specialization. Of course, division of labor and specialization, they have different meaning, but they are just not interchangeable. Now, what do we mean by division of labor? Division of labor refers to a different workers performing different tasks in the course of producing a goods or service, while specialization refers to different firms specializing in producing different goods or services. As you can see here, we have division of labor, we have different workers which different profession here. Now we have the specialization to be the different firms specializing in producing different goods or services. Here we have the doctor here performing his our own job. We have the mechanic, and we have the farmer and the cashier here also. Moving to the next slide, where we have one question relating to the disadvantages of specialization. Of course, we have not done disadvantages, but what do you think will be the disadvantages of specialization of a worker? We have high quality of the goods. Is that so? A low price of the product that they make, boredom due to repetition of the same tasks, and the opportunity to undertake training. What do you think can be the disadvantages of specialization? Of course, it is the boredom due to the repetition of the same task, because workers may get bored dealing with the same task each day, which it will also leads them not to take care of their job. Of course, it is boredom due to the repetition of the same task. Now we now move to the next slide, where we have the advantages and disadvantages of the division of labor and specialization at the same time. The first advantages we have here is increased output. Of course, the division of labor and specialization can lead to an increase in output, because workers can be more efficient during the production products. Of course, it also leads to less wastage. It reduces the waste that occur during the production process, and at the same time it lower the unit cost. Of course, specialized worker can produce more output than other worker, because it takes them few hours. It also leads to higher wages and also quicker training. Now we move to the disadvantages. The first disadvantages of division of labor is increased boredom of work. Of course, I've said earlier that workers will get bored when they are dealing with the same tasks every day. Of course, we also have over reliance and independent. When there is division of labor, it causes interdependence on other. Now we also have changing taste. We also have changing division of labor will also lead to change in the taste of products produced by the workers, and at the same time we also have the finite resources. We have the finite resources. Having to specialize labor in industry that require extensive use of resources might be a problem. Of course, it will be a problem. Now moving to the next past question that we have here. Malaysia and Indonesia specialize in the production of palm oil. What is the disadvantage of specialization? This also is talking about the disadvantages of specialization that we just discussed now. Now we have reliance on trade with other countries for other goods, rising palm oil prices, creation of jobs to meet world demand, and a concentration of labor in the activities in which it is most productive. What do you think can be our answer here? Among these options, we have the reliance on trade, rising palm oil prices, creation of jobs. What do you think can be the disadvantages of specialization? Of course, it's the reliance on trade with other countries for other goods, because it is interdependent here. Now, this will be the end of our class. Don't forget to stay tuned to our website www.edubbey.com. See you in the next class.